Okay, let's go ahead and do our we do for today. So the first question says, 4 students are traveling to a math contest. The table shows the weights of the 4 students' suitcases. In what position would Juan's suitcase be if the weights of the suitcase in pounds were ordered from greatest to least? Okay, so we're going to use a place value chart to place these numbers in order. So my place value chart is going to have the tens place, the ones place, my decimal. I'm going to have the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. Okay. Alright, so let's start with 21 and 605 thousandths. So I'm going to put 21 and 605 thousandths. Okay. So I'll put that one in the chart. Let's look at 24 and 8 tenths. So 24, here's my decimal, 8 tenths. Okay. Then I have 21 and 48 hundredths. So I got 21, 48 hundredths. Don't forget your decimal. And the last one is 24 and 75 hundredths. So 24, 75 hundredths. Now, when you are ordering numbers, remember place value is important. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure all of the numbers have the same place values. So I see that 21 and 605 thousandths has a number in the thousands place. So I'm going to make sure all my numbers have zeros for the placeholders. So for 24 and 8 tenths, I went ahead and added 2 zeros. So now that's 24 and 800 thousandths. For 21 and 48 hundredths, I'm going to go ahead and add 0 in the thousands place. And the same for 24 and 75 hundredths. Okay, so now all my numbers are the same length. So now I'm going to look to put them in order from greatest to least. And I'm looking for Juan's suitcase. Okay. Now we know greatest means the biggest number. So let's start in our tens place. In our tens place, we all have 2. So I can't do the tens place. So I'm going to look at my ones place. I do see that I have different values in there. I have 1, 4, 1, and 4. I'm looking for my greatest number. So I know that 4 is the greatest number, but I have 2 numbers with the 4 in there. So then I'm going to have to go to my tens place. So I have an 8 for 24 and 800 thousandths, and then I have a 7 for 24 and 75 hundredths, or 750 thousandths. Since I'm looking for greatest to least, I know that 24 and 800 thousandths is greater because I have an 8 here. Okay, so this is going to be my greatest number. So that one's going to be first. Okay. And since 24 and 75 hundredths still has 24, the 7 in the tenths place makes that my second number. So I'm going to go ahead and put 24 and 75 hundredths next. So that's my second number. And now I'm looking for my third number. So I'm going to have to go back to 21 and 605 thousandths and 21 and 480 thousandths. Okay. So again, I have the 1 in the tens place. So I have to go to my tenths place. I have a 6 and a 4. And again, I'm putting them in order from greatest to least. My greatest number being 6. So that's going to be my third number, 21 and 605 thousandths. So that means 21 and 480 thousandths is my fourth value. Now let's go back to the question. I'm looking for the position of Juan's suitcase. So I'm going to go over here to my table. I'm looking for Juan's suitcase, and here it tells me that it was the third place. So this is my third suitcase. So my answer here would be H, third. Okay, so let's go on to our next question. Okay, so it says, which inequality is not true? Okay, so I know I'm looking for something that's not true. So in this case, it has to be false. Okay, so I'm going to go in and determine whether each of these statements is true or false. So let's look at A, 65 and 7 tenths, or 67 and 54 hundredths. Okay, now remember, when you're comparing decimals, you want to make them all the same length because you want to go based on place value. So I see that 67 and 5400 has 2 place values behind the decimal, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in my place value with 0. So now this becomes 65 and 70/100 and 67 and 5400. So I'll look at place value. I start with my tens. I have a 6 and a 6, so I can't use that place value. Now I notice that I have 5 and a 7 here. Okay, so looking at your symbols, we have to determine whether the 5 or the 7 is greater. Now I know that 5 is less, so this symbol here tells me this is less than. You remember our video from earlier, this is less than. Okay, so let's see if this is true. 5 is less than 7. So in this case, this statement is true. Okay, so again, I'm looking for a false statement, so I'm going to keep going. So for B, it says 4 3/1000 is greater than, this is greater than 4 3/100. Okay, now remember, we want to make them all the same length. Want to make sure we're using the same place values. So for 4 3/1000, I have 3 place values, so I'm going to go ahead and add a 0 for 4 3/100. Okay, then I'm going to start comparing place value. I'm going to start with the ones. I have a 4 and a 4 and 1, so I can't use that place value. So then I go to my next place value, which is the tenths. In my tenths, I have a 0 and a 0, so I can't use that one. Now here's where it changes. I have a 0 here and a 3 here. Okay, so let's see if this sentence is true. This is 0 is greater than 3. Okay, now based on this sentence, I know that 0 is not greater than 3, so this has to be false. Okay, now I am looking for a false statement, so let's make sure. Let's check one more just to make sure. Alright, so we have, for C, we have 26 4/10, and this is less than 26 48/100. Okay, so let's check C to make sure that this statement is true. So we have 26 is less than 26 48/100. So let's start with our tens place. So we have a 2 and a 2. So that's the same, so I can't use that. I have a 6 and a 6 in the ones place, so I can use that. And in my tens place, I have a 4 and a 4. Okay, so in this case, I have to go in and make sure I add one more place value so that I can compare these numbers. So in this case, it's telling me 0 is less than 8. Okay, so this statement is true. So I know that this one cannot be my answer. Okay, so in this case, B is the correct answer because it's false.